Hey everyone, it's hashtag Malkin Live, and as I previewed for you in my Twitter tease, this one's going to be super epic, and I'm going to feel like 30 years younger, or like a den mother, mama griper, whatever you want to call me. We've got some awesome folks joining us, and I'm just going to bring them in right away. We're going to talk about everything under the sun, and let's see if I can do this. How's that?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yay. Whoa. Okay. I've got Jaden McNeil, Kansas State University. He's back in Kansas State.
I am, yeah. Back in Manhattan.
And I call him the godfather, in a way, of the America First student movement, and we can talk about that. And let's see, where do I go next? College Republicans United. I've got Rick and Julie, and I want to make sure I get your last names right here. It's Rick Thomas. He's the founder of College Republicans United, the director of volunteers for the Daniel McCarthy Senate campaign, the real, true America First candidate. Well, she was a student at some point in Arizona. And Julie, is it Houtman or Hootman?
It's Houtman.
Houtman, who's the president of College Republicans United. They put on a terrific event. I got to speak on their campus. Oh my gosh, it seems like forever ago.
Yeah, back in March.
Yeah, back in March, before a lot of the craziness started. And I've also got Nick Reedy. He is the America First Youth Ambassador for the Lauren Witzke Republican campaign. She's running against Chris Coons, the Democrat, for Senate in Delaware. And he recently joined her team, became a representative, and we'll talk about the things that he is doing. And then, oh my gosh, I'm an old person. I can't keep track of everyone. I've got Marshall. He's the president of the Penn State Bull Moose Party. So you're out in Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us, Bill.
Anytime.
And we have Chief Trumpster, at Chief Trumpster, who's very active and big America First social media guru on Twitter. Hey, Chief.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks so much. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Well, of course, I have to start with Jaden. Lots going on. I don't even know where to start because, I watched the videos of you at the Arizona BLM protest. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I mean, that's probably a good place to start because, like, as many people in the live chat know, I was on vacation with a bunch of, my friends in Arizona. And myself, Nick Fuentes, and Zoomer Matt, if you've seen him on Twitter, we roll up to this BLM protest, and it was, kind of like winding down, and we started talking to the people, and they weren't really gauging us. They're kind of like huddled up. And Matt brought a sign. It was in front of the library, and he had a sign that said, "I can't read," like a play on words with "I can't breathe," and just wanted to get a picture. And basically, make a long story short, they kind of found out they saw the sign, started freaking out. I wasn't even really in, the confrontation. It was basically Nick and Matt got his glasses taken off of him, but, it seems like I was in it with all this response from the people on campus attacking me for, I was at a protest. Oh no.
But you.
Yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy. Just one guy snatched Matt's glasses off. They were screaming at Nick. They recorded Nick, and a couple of clips went pretty viral of him messing with them, but I was kind of in the background, sadly.
But it doesn't matter because now, of course, you were always public enemy number one at ASU. And now it seems like they've sort of ramped it up. What is it, like the Kansas State Democrats? And
the Democrats are after me. The LGBTQ club's after me. The college Republicans are after me. It's crazy. It's,
right.
I went back to the house and I see, the college Republicans with Black Lives Matter, and everyone's talking, George Floyd, the greatest guy ever. And I'm getting attacked by them because I responded to that. I called them out for that, and we can get more into that later. But now apparently there's a change.org petition about me on campus that has like 1,300 signatures of people. Thank you. Yes, it's a real accomplishment. I have, 1,300 people calling for AFS, my student organization, America First Students, and myself to be kicked off of campus. So,
yeah. And just as background for people who are newcomers to the, entire chronology and history of the America First student movement, back in the fall during the outbreak of the Groyper Wars, Jaden, you were one of the first to announce publicly that you were resigning from the huge TPUSA chapter that you had built in protest of all of the Conservatism Inc. youth leaders.
right. So I started a Turning Point chapter my freshman year at Kansas State, and after the first semester, we were already one of the largest in the country. And I had several issues with Turning Points, and I've been friends with Nick for a while, and I just had enough of it. I wrote, released a statement calling them out on numerous different things, and they weren't exactly the America First organization they claimed to be, and I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And figured they should be called out. So
yeah, well, and I think it emboldened a lot of young nationalists, America First types, people who started questioning what was really going on with both TPUSA and YAF. And Rick and Julie, your chapter is sort of a representative of that too. Can you, especially for like the boomers in my audience, whether they're like age boomers or just cultural boomers, can you explain the split between your group and the other CR group on your campus?
Yeah, so what really started off as a protest against how the rules were being interpreted in the college Republicans, they weren't following their own bylaws. They weren't playing a fair game. We believe that if anyone wants to come to our meetings and speak with our members, they should have that opportunity to do so. There should be a free speech platform. And instead, their leadership was pinpointing, well, these people are the Conservative Inc. candidates, the safe candidates. They can come in. All these other people, they're a little edgy, so we're going to block them out and pretend they don't exist. And so we saw that, and there were things that we weren't too happy with. At the time, Kelly Ward in Arizona was running for Senate, and the people running the college Republicans were behind Martha McSally 100%, and they boycotted her, and they were making sure that all the members were working for Martha McSally, whether they wanted to or not. And if you weren't working for Martha McSally, then you were pushed off from like running for office. They were making sure that the elections were rigged in favor of their candidates. And so we were just saying that this was unfair. We split off and did our own thing and then opened it up to everyone that wanted to come to our meetings. And it was amazing watching the other side react by calling us racist, alt-right, neo-Nazis, just because we actually believe in the Constitution of the free speech, the First Amendment. And ever since then, they've labeled us as an extremist organization for that. Right.
Marshall, how about your story? What is the sort of origins of the Penn State BMP, and how do you distinguish yourselves from the Con Inc. Establishment CR types?
Yeah, so our organization started as a result of our college Republicans during the 2016 election. They basically had a secret poll in the middle of the summer about whether to endorse Trump. So of course they chose not to, and this infuriated a lot of people, obviously. So we split off and formed our own organization. We gained national headlines during the first Trump election because we built a wall on Main Lawn around the flagpole and like stayed there barricaded all day. But it was funny. Our organization,
like an autonomous zone.
Yeah, like our own autonomous zone. But we didn't loot buildings or anything like that. It wasn't as radical. But yeah, we were kind of like a precursor to the America First movement. Like when other chapters started breaking away, we were like, oh, cool, we're not the only ones anymore. But we've been just a pro-worker, populist sort of organization that's meant to be honestly on campus primarily oppose like the college Republicans and other groups like them. Like Antifa leaves us alone on campus. They're terrified of us. Nobody really comes after us except the college Republicans and others who spread lies about us, being Nazis. I actually found this organization at first because I was in the college Republicans, and some guy came up to me and was like, "Oh yeah, the Bull Moose Party. Those guys are Nazis and losers. Stay away from them." And that's always been like really funny and ironic to me because these people have stolen money, all sorts of other scummy activities, and I come to this organization and I have never had more like kind-hearted and loyal friends as I've met here. So yeah, that's what our organization is about.
That's awesome. And Nick, talk about your involvement in all of this. Wait a minute, I hear a little bit of echo. I don't know who that is.
Yeah,
Is that you? Is that better, guys? Boomer Tech.
yeah.
Yeah. Talk about how you got involved in all this.
Are you talking to me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I got involved with this originally by getting involved with the America First Coalition and getting in contact with those guys. And I joined up with that group, and then I also started my New American Patriots podcast, where I actually have had, I just had Chief Trumpster on it. Hey, Chief. And I also had Penn State on it. Hey, man, just a little shout out.
Nice.
Hey there.
Family reunion.
Yeah. Yeah, we are one. We are a legion on America First. Okay. Yeah. So going on with the America First movement, we did the immigration moratorium, and we've been pushing for the guest worker programs, such as stopping the H-1B and the OPT program, student visa programs. And through my podcast, I've been interviewing a lot of America First candidates. I'm going to be interviewing Jeremy Bell.
Who just got suspended from Twitter.
Yeah. Jeremy Bell on Sunday. And I'm going to be interviewing Lauren the next following Saturday. I was just the other day I was on her live stream talking about her starting an anti-doxing initiative with her and stopping harassment of conservatives on college campuses.
That's fantastic. Somebody needs to do it. You should have Daniel McCarthy on your show too. See?
Yeah, love to have you on here.
They'll do it.
I want to bring Chief Trumpster in here too, because you've been great. There's a number of other accounts out there that have continued to remind people about the past statements of people like Charlie Kirk, who's now, seen the light. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about the responses that you've seen to that, because, we pushed back really hard, but there are so many. And again, I hate to be trashing boomers and Gen Xers, but I have the privilege to do that, right? I guess I have Gen X privilege. People who are still, after all this time, just have either no clue or they're just in denial about the America Last wing of the Republican Party.
Right. So the most common response I've seen is that Trump promotes Kirk, and therefore Kirk must be amazing and must really be good for the country. As the Great Wars kind of began, when they happened, in the wintertime, we saw all these questions that were being asked to Kirk, and him just, getting angry at them and labeling them as racists and all these other ludicrous names. I started asking myself, well, what did Kirk say in the past? Because he's not answering the question right now. So I looked into some, his past podcasts, which are, again, they drain your IQ and they make you it's really boring to go listen to him talk for hours on end to find something that he said. And I found a lot of statements that really just show his true colors. He wants, 50 million immigrants in less than 10 years, and he wants them all to go into Ohio, a swing state. Not to mention, he wants unlimited genius and skilled worker visas. Not to mention, he also was trashing Japan for their immigration policy because they only accepted 3 refugees. So you look at all these past statements, that Kirk has made, as well as Crenshaw and all these other America Last neocon organizations, and you hear these, I guess, a lot of people telling, well, Kirk is good because Trump promotes him. That's the most normal response I see from a lot of people who are shocked that Kirk would say something like that. But the truth is that Kirk is really not America First. He really is just advocating for open borders, free market ideas, which are terrible for the country, but may be good for his donors who donate to his organization. It's honestly, it's great to see, though, a lot of people responding positively and saying that Kirk is a fraud, and he's again, people are seeing how bad Kirk is on policy, and we should never trust him and let him anywhere near the White House. He should not be anywhere near Trump's inner circle, and he should never be allowed to put these policies in place, because if he did, we have the Kushner policies.
Right.
So.
Of course, when he's tweeting pictures of him and Jared together,
yeah,
throw up your hands.
Yeah.
So Jaden, I recall one of the things that was so remarkable about your statement when you resigned from TPUSA. We talk a lot about the immigration issues and the endless war issues, but it was really the the social liberalism of these groups that you targeted as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so Turning Point USA, one of the main issues that I had with them was, they claim to be this, conservative organization, but one of the first things, and I said this in my statement, one of the first, times that I started having issues with them and butting heads is when they instantly took issue with the Covington Catholic kids and Benny Johnson, Charlie Kirk. These guys are out there, calling these guys racist. These kids are evil, and calling them, what'd they say? They're the Westboro Bat. No, that was us. But
Yeah, that's right.
it's the same thing. The same
Right.
thing. Any kid, any person who stands up for, a white kid in the wrong place at the wrong time, says anything that's conservative, they're out there calling you racist, homophobic, xenophobic, blah 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 blah. But again, that kind of goes into then their views on homosexuality, and the fact that they're promoting people like Rob Smith, Ram Rants, who's a gay rapper, and they hire these people to work with students, and they're putting them on stage, they're promoting them. So I had issues with that. And then, of course, just from a religious aspect with, abortion, these people, they don't even let you talk about abortion. They claim, if you are in Turning Point USA, you can talk about free markets, you can talk about the economy, but you cannot talk about social issues. That's what they always say, or the wrong stance on social issues. Like they don't even let you talk about abortion. And to me, that's just mind blowing, especially from a conservative organization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Charlie Clark is really a social libertarian, and he just whenever he gets into a sticky situation, he just virtue signals to the left or the right. Because recently he sent out a tweet saying he's against the guest worker programs now, but I think that's really just a virtue signal to the right, and he doesn't really mean it because he doesn't put any concrete actions behind it. Because I've never seen Turning Point USA actually do anything with advocacy when it comes to immigration at all. There's no concrete effort whatsoever.
Right. And if anything, that actually add on, if anything, it's opposite. You see like a lot of his past statements about immigration programs. He wants more of them to come in, on multiple occasions. So he really is not 100%, for cutting immigration or cutting visa worker programs. He's behind the scenes. He's very much for it, but of course he has to put on a fake front to the public to maintain somewhat of a relevance in the conservative movement, because he's seen the tide sort of turn to no immigration, and we're trying to take our party back. So
it's whatever the donors want. Absolutely, it's whatever the donors want. He'll placate to them. One day it's one issue, and then he'll switch to the other. I mean, remember back when the founding of Turning Point, he was a Ted Cruz supporter. He was anti-Trump. He even had a few Twitter posts where he said Trump would be a disaster for the country. Lo and behold, Trump wins the nomination and eventually the presidency. And I've always been a Trump supporter since day one.
Yeah. So, I mean, how does that? I mean, how do you deal with that though? Trump is fine with it, right? I mean, Trump has embraced even. I mean, the some of the adult versions of Charlie Kirk, right?
Yeah.
People who've hijacked the nationalism agenda. I mean, and I've talked about this before, but Rich Lowry, the editor of the Never Trump issue of National Review, is being retweeted by Trump praising him for his book, The Case for Nationalism. I mean, Bill, like, how do we reconcile these things? How do we keep telling ourselves, oh, well, his instincts are right, and he just has to make sure that it's not Jared Kushner who's whispering in his ear last, and then we have to pray that he watches Tucker Carlson and keeps his course every night.
I wish Tucker were president.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
John Bolton on his national security advisor, someone who was just the complete opposite of his worldview. He endorsed John McCain for Senate. He endorsed Mitt Romney for Senate. And these are people that to this day, even when McCain on his last dying gasp, were anti-Trump. And yet he listened to McConnell for these endorsements. He's doing the same thing with Martha McSally. Martha McSally back in 2016 was going after him, saying how terrible the comments were about women. She refused to endorse him even after he won the nomination. In 2018, she, campaigned with Mitt Romney, who also was anti-Trump. And now all of a sudden, I'm a Trump supporter and I got the endorsement. This is fantastic. I don't know what Trump's doing, honestly. He's getting terrible advice. He just doesn't know what's going on. or they've got some pull on them, blackmail.
Yeah. And it's like, it's well, and I want to talk about Kansas for a second, Jaden, because of course my old friend Chris Kobach is running for Senate there. Trump, has he weighed in on that?
I haven't seen anything with that, so I don't know. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, I was just saying it's really disappointing to see, Chris Kobach's one of the best America First candidates running, and he should be, same with Jeff Sessions and these people. Trump's actively working against Jeff Sessions because of their, petty argument. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it has been really disappointing to see.
Yeah, Chief, can you give a sort of digest, because you've the work that you've done on Tommy Tuberville has been used by the Sessions.
Oh boy, yeah. So I would say
yes. Where'd he go?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I'm like lagging a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying with Tommy Tuberville, I was looking into Tommy Tuberville because Sessions is great on immigration. Sessions knows what he's talking about. So I looked into his opponent, Tommy Tuberville, and turns out, surprise, he wants 400,000 Indian visa workers to go and come into our country, which is crazy to think that another one of these mass immigration candidates is endorsed by Trump. And he's called Sessions out. Trump always is tweeting at Sessions and all that, but in reality, Sessions is America first. He is good on immigration. Tuberville wants more people to come in. He's in favor of letting more people into our country, more workers who will compete for American jobs and stagnate wages and leave Americans without jobs. So it's crazy to think that we're basically letting people into power who are legally outsourcing our jobs to people who are not American citizens. It's ridiculous, and it's really disgusting to say the least.
Yeah. What I can't believe is how people can be supporting these establishment types like Mitt Romney and Flake and these types after everything they've pulled, especially what Romney pulled with the impeachment vote. He should be. I don't call him Mitt Romney anymore. I just call him Benedict Mitt because he's the biggest traitor in GOP history.
Yeah. Same thing here in Colorado. Trump is supporting Cory Gardner, who is basically Mitt Jr. It's tough. I mean, and that's why, of course, Nick, you're working for Lauren, and why Julie and Rick, you're working for Daniel McCarthy. I mean, a lot of the question about the future of this movement is who are the people who are going to be running for office, and what's going on in Pennsylvania, Bill? Are there any good candidates out there?
So honestly, the mood in our organization at this point is that, quite frankly, the GOP needs to be abandoned. We have no faith that they'll ever stand with us, regardless of what candidates they run. Quite frankly, our opinion is that all the effort should basically be put into organizing other institutions, maybe a different national party or something like that. Because even when you have people who make these sort of promises, Trump in particular, they just tend to not carry through. We just don't feel that the GOP as an institution can really offer us anything anymore. I know there's some other people who support for the GOP who feel the same, who aren't allowed to say that, but with us being free of those constrictions, I mean that's just where we are. We don't feel that these sort of electoral politics between the GOP and the Democrats can really get us anywhere, truthfully.
That's interesting. I mean, that's a debate that we've had over the last several decades. I mean, Pat Buchanan ran with the Reform Party. Tom Tancredo here, when he ran for governor, ran on a third party platform. It just divided everybody up, and then it didn't work. Can there be an America First Party that Tucker Carlson can be a candidate for? Right. What are everyone else's thoughts on that, of the question of destroy the GOP or co-opt it?
Well, if you're talking about doing a third party, though, usually third parties don't do that well in elections. Like the Green Party ran, the Libertarian Party ran, and they usually are called spoilers because they usually hurt the main candidate that's trying to run, and they could divide the though and actually hurt the GOP. So what I think we should do is sort of infiltrate the GOP and do a reformation of the GOP to a more grassroots, middle class, working class platform.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, because it's like we can run a third party. We can definitely get some traction with that, but the problem is we may not have enough traction to beat not only the Republican but also the Democrat who'd be running. I think that if we retake our party and get people who are, get people to run who are actually America first, and know the issues that are core values for America first, I think that it would be amazing. And how long that takes, I'm not sure. But I think that would probably be the best path going forward.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I would have to disagree with that on the basis that our organization, like, we're not just like, we don't see ourselves as just a further right version of the GOP. Like, we adopt some what you could call like Democrat economic policies, as well as we're more actively environmentalist. And with that platform, combined with like the America First workers platform, we've actually found a lot of support among like Bernie and Yang supporters. Like our organization, the groups that have been most friendly towards us have actually been the Yang gangers compared to like the hostility from the conservative.
Oh, wow.
I think that there is something to be said about like some of the people in the Democrat Party. I would say I have more in common than with a lot of Bernie voters than I do with a lot of like neocons, in that at least with the Bernie voters and some Yang gangers, they at least have the pretense of actually wanting to help people. Whereas a lot of these neocons are just outright, it doesn't matter if like, millions of Americans are like in poverty, as long as we have free markets, that's good in and of itself. So I do think there is a fundamental clash with neoconservatism that really just can't be overcome, like within the Republican Party.
Yeah, and in the Republican Party, there's like some great division that has happened. Like that we have nether Trumpers that are currently in the Senate who are voting against Donald Trump's platform and are blocking him. And every time we try and get them on our side, they always try and they're up to obstructing the agenda. Like Mitch McConnell and the senator from Alaska, Murkowski. She's a big one. I think we need to politically isolate and pressure these people to be more America first or get out of the GOP.
Yeah, my fear is you're going to have another Ross Perot kind of incident where great candidate, but he split the vote for the Republicans and you ended up with Bill Clinton.
Right.
So I kind of agree that we should form a caucus within the Republican Party. You fight in the primaries. You do not vote for the rhino right, possibly in the general election. And you just make sure that the GOP suffers and they start realizing that this is a force that we need to reckon with. We need to have a conversation with them. And then we can start exposing them through dialogue and debate.
I think the GOP is already changing, and we're going to see it continue to change and shift, especially when we see the demographics shifting with the country and the electability of Republicans continue to, decrease, looking at voting trends. So, whether America First takes over or some, more, democratic nationalist policies when it comes to economics, I think that we're going to see a lot of change in the GOP, and it really comes down to if we're driving that or if someone else is. But I don't know that, I don't think that the third party is really, I don't see that as really being realistic.
Option.
Right. Exactly. I agree.
Well, I think that both things can happen. And, there's not a lot of attention paid by most national pundits to local and state politics. But, and I'm dating myself, and this is, ancient history. But when the Tea Party first rose up, 2009, 2010, there was a very famous congressional race. New York 23, the 23rd Congressional District. And it wasn't a Republican who ran as the Tea Party candidate. It was a Conservative Party candidate. And the Conservative Party is very strong in New York. And you could see that maybe at the local and state level that anti-establishment Republican conservatives might be able to break off. Like I said, I mentioned Tom Tancredo tried to do it here, but there was a lot of shenanigans and the playing field was rigged. You had to do a lot of things at the last minute, so the organization wasn't there. But I mean, especially if you have younger nationalists who are interested in running for state legislature or city council or things like that, both things could happen. Reform from both within the party and without it.
Sure.
So here's a question we can just sort of go round robin. But of the Republican leaders, elected officials that are in office right now, who do you trust? Who do you like? Who do you see as promising? As we head into the sort of post-Trump era of the Republican Party. Jaden, let's start with you. We'll go around.
I mean, it's hard, especially when some of these people that, you look at most of these people and their reaction to like the riots recently, it's been pretty disappointing. I don't know. I guess the first name that probably comes to mind is like Paul Gosar. He's a good one, but I can't, like, that's really the only one that comes to my mind right now. I mean, Chris Kobach's good, but what's his electability and I don't even know what the race is looking like right now, but
yeah,
I don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah, because even Mitch McConnell's sounding like a Democrat now. Like I just saw him on the news.
He sounded like that
Democrat
for 30 years.
It's pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Any other favorites? Any other? I mean, the names like Josh Hawley comes up a lot. Matt Gaetz, Tom Cotton. Thoughts, everyone?
Andy Biggs is
Steve King.
Well, Steve King
was
now, yeah.
Steve got kicked.
And I think the fact that we can only like the number of competent GOP figures we can name is like we could list them on one hand isn't a very
I mean, I'm a little biased, but can I say Lauren Waltz? I'm a little biased, but can I say Lauren Waltz because she's great and she's definitely better than the wet blanket Chris Coons right now. That guy just rubber stamps whether like Chuck and Nancy says.
Yeah, no, she's fantastic. I met her at AFPAC, and she's the real deal. I mean, you get a lot of these candidates who are trying to just sort of surf the wave, but when you drill down and you try and ask them about specific policies, like the policies that you enumerated in your open letter to President Trump, they have no idea what they're talking about. They're sort of like groomed enough to know, okay, it's not as simple as illegal bad, legal good. Like, they're sort of like one grade up, they're in second grade now. And so that's a question I have for all of you too. Let's talk about immigration for a minute, because these universities have cashed in, they've made so much money, they've sold out to all of these foreign governments and countries. They rely on foreign student tuition, and in the wake of the pandemic, they are fiercely battling to protect F1 and OPT. How are you trying to get the message out to your peers about the damage that those programs are doing to their future?
Well, just to touch on the letter for a second.
Yeah.
Literally the day, like the Monday after, like we released it on a Friday, and the Monday after Graham and Company came out, it did a counter letter asking the president not to do anything about the programs. So we've gotten immediate pushback from like the establishment right, and the way we change it is that we do more of a grassroots efforts. We reach out to these colleges and get them to sign up, and we show that there is a strong youth presence, that we want jobs, we want high-skilled labor, and we don't want these ridiculous policies anymore. This is not what we stand for, and we need to force these guys to say, to do their jobs and stick up for the American workers.
Yeah. Rick and Julie?
Well, I mean, what we try to do with our members is they're all very anxious about finding a job after university, right? So whatever the major is, like they already have so many student loans and debt to pay off before they can find some like financial independence and stability. And so when you have so many foreign guest workers that are, prioritized over your own, it's not only just, lowering the price of what the job market is, but also the competition's now increase. And so that's very appealing to a lot of people, but I feel like there's a dogma from like Turning Point USA that you have to get through first. And it's really weird listening to people kind of advocate against their best interests.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Because most people on campus, especially, are you ever going to convince these psychopath communist Democrat, you're never going to convince them. But the Turning Point USA, through my experience, I've realized that you can convince these people, because a lot of them are, they're looking for the truth like myself. They're not in it like on this college level. A lot of them are in it because, you know, they're into politics and they're looking for the truth, and this is all they've ever seen or known, and it had fed to them since, you know, they got into it. But, you know, show them, most of them think, you know, this is just low skilled. This is, you know, jobs Americans won't do. And when you look especially at OPT and H-1B, you know, these are high skill jobs. These are why you're going to college, and
Right.
they don't realize that. And but, you know, make them read some Michelle Malkin and George Borjas, and there you go.
We're giving away school now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'd actually add on because I actually, you know, the recent talk with Pedro Gonzalez about the OPT and the visa programs. A stat specifically about college students is about 1 million people a year who are international go to the United States to have college. Now, of that amount, 600,000 are STEM students, 400,000 are liberal arts or other majors, and of that number, over 70% stay 10 years later and have a degree and have a job. So what that means basically is you have 1 million or so students coming in, and 70% of those people will still be in America taking jobs. So
That's right.
we're importing competition, which of course makes it a lot tougher for these college students to get jobs, internships, and you know their future is at risk. Not to mention OPT, which is a kind of a internship on steroids. It's like a year where they can take a job and just take it from an American citizen. It's actually really it's crazy, and it's legalized outsourcing. We're legally as a government telling your own citizens that we're basically gonna put you second. We're putting other countries first, which is disgraceful. And but it's been happening for a while. Every year, it's another million, another million. So the numbers keep adding up, and it's devastating for Americans as well as it stagnates wages in specific sectors, and it is just wreaking havoc on STEM students specifically.
Absolutely. And just for if we've got more young people joining us on the live streams who are not familiar, that these programs, OPT, was created by administrative fiat, basically. There was no debate on it, there was no vote on it. And then along with OPT, there's a companion program called H4EAD, Employment Authorization Documents for every spouse of an OPT worker. So, I mean, you just double the amount of competition right there. Bill, I wanted to ask you if you disagree that that lefties on campus are, you know, basically should be written off here, because of course Bernie Sanders himself at one point was a huge opponent of H-1B. You know, Andrew Yang was just like always a complete disappointment. It's like he like inched up to the line. He seemed to get it on, you know, appealing to, you know, populist sentiment, talking about truck drivers and all that. But I don't know if it's just his tribal allegiances or whatever just sort of prevented him from going where he needed to go.
I mean, yeah, there's multiple kinds of leftists. You have the crazy, like, psychotic ones who thinks there's 37 different genders or whatever. Get through to those people. But the ones who are in it because they're genuinely, like, motivated by, oh, I want to help people, or, you know, oh, I think that American workers are suffering, like, you can very easily get through to them. We've had a lot of success getting through to people like that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly think that if you were, I mean, again, like I said earlier, I'm in favor of creating a, you know, totally separate institution from the GOP. But if we're going to do that, I would work very hard to market towards those people and say, like, look, like, you know, this pro-worker thing is inherently at odds with this crazy, you know, these crazy social policies the left is endorsing. Because, I mean, like, I've worked manual labor jobs since I was 14. No workers actually support these crazy communist, like, social Marxist ideas. But you can appeal to a lot of them if you just say, like, listen, like, it's them or us. Like, these people aren't going to stop here. So, like, unless you want your, you know, 6-year-old to get, you know, pumped full of hormones at school because the teacher decided they were transgender, like, you know, we're going to offer you some really good pro-worker platforms and much more reasonable social ideas. And I think you would get a lot of people who are currently, like, Bernie or Yang supporters from that.
Well, you know, it's definitely worth trying. And it makes me wonder, like, what though a coalition of a third party that you're envisioning would look like if in the end so many of the leftists, at least all the way back to when I was on a crazy liberal campus, in the end are always going to side with their tribe. And so, I just wanted to open up a discussion here too about just how toxic identity politics has become, and we're seeing it. It's not going to stop all summer long on these campuses. Is that even tenable to create some sort of alliance with those types of people?
Well, that's the thing. A lot of them aren't those types of people. Like a lot of them are just, like there are just working class white people who are, Bernie or Yang supporters. I'm not saying there's a lot of them, but in this sort of political environment, like 5% might as well be 20% with how close the margins are. I think that there are a lot of even people on the left who are, and centrists I've met, who are turned off by like this rabid, like, anti-white line that they're going down. Yeah, I do think there's fertile ground there. In my experience, I've seen it.
Rick, I saw you shaking your head. Is it possible to go from woke to based?
I would say half of the Bernie Sanders people want to have a French Revolution style revolt where they're going house to house and murdering anyone
That's true.
Even remotely looks white. And so how do you have a dialogue with someone that wants to kill you? I don't know.
I'm not talking with those people though.
Yeah, but they're such a huge portion. Like the young Democrats at ASU are like pretty much non-existent. The left is culminated around the Young Democratic Socialists of America, which is the Bernie Sanders group, and they won't even support Joe Biden because he's way too conservative for them. So it's a problem. The Andrew Yang kids, I would say about a quarter of them will vote for Trump. Another quarter of them just won't vote altogether. There is some wiggle room on that one, but they just weren't sizable to make a huge difference on the community.
Yeah.
Want to add in?
No, I agree with what he said. Yeah, there's no conversation, in my opinion, that you can have with the YDSA. I mean, we call them the friendly face of Antifa. They want us dead. How can you even argue with that?
Like, the thing I also want to say is, like, logically speaking, our policies are really pro-America. Like, they would benefit from our policies. Our policies benefit the middle class. Our policies are great in terms of prioritizing American citizens and getting them jobs and keeping industry secure from foreign worker people who just come in and take jobs at stagnant wages. The problem is there's just kind of like this cloud, this like mist over these people's heads, and they cannot break free of that, where they're just brainwashed to think anyone from the right who's white or who's Christian or whatever is a bad person and must be dealt with. It must be, like you see some of this stuff in the, some footage on Twitter and all that of these massive, this mass like anti-white or anti-conservative or anti-Christian hate, and it's just really sad and tragic to see. I think that it's hard to be reasoning with these people. Yeah. I don't know how. I feel like it's to a point where it's like so many of them are brainwashed to the point of it's like really hard to break free of that.
They're Trotskyites. They don't want America to do better, even if it them.
Right. You said they're pro-American policies. You said that they're pro-American policies, but they hate America. They hate our history. We see them tearing down monuments, defacing George Washington statues. Yeah. They hate, white people. They hate Christians. I think that it's much more productive to reach out to, conservative, like boomer type mentality, young people, age doesn't really matter there, but that mentality, because those are really the people you can convince, not these other, and even apolitical people. It's gotten to the point where, all these apolitical people, normie types are posting black squares, all their friends, oh, you're a racist if you don't post a black square. What? You don't have Black Lives Matter in your bio? You're a racist. It's, it's really these people that I think that are in the right kind of sphere, the right side here, and getting into those minds first and foremost before worrying about the people over there.
Like maybe independents of people.
Yeah, I think next to 9/11, one of the worst things that happened to America was the destruction of the nuclear family model, because that allowed stability in the household, and it allowed, like, we see a lot more pills, a lot more opioid crisis, and other sort of havoc going on in our society. I think it's due to unstable family households and no father households in like urban communities. So I think we need to reintroduce Christian values and family values back into the American society, because it's just completely deteriorated and has led to higher suicide rates and drug addictions.
Well, that's for sure. But one problem, though, is a lot of the religious institutions, and I'm a Catholic, and of course I've mouthed off a lot about this, have been hijacked by cultural Marxists. And, you know, it's so often it's not the people on the left that are the problem. It's, for example, those 20 or so Republican governors who defied President Trump on freezing refugee resettlement. It's people like the ones in Kansas, and I want to go back to you, Jaden, on this, because it's something that I've really puzzled with a lot, and I wanted to know your answer to this question as well as all of the other kids, which is, what is it that is making, like, those Kansas State College Republicans put Black Lives Matter on their banner, or espouse Open Borders Inc. until Charlie Kirk tells them not to for expedient reasons. Like, they've been guilted. And so it's too easy to say, oh, well, college is radicalizing them, because it seems to me that something is happening before that. And to address Nick's point, it's not that these kids are coming from broken homes. They come from nuclear Christian white families.
Right. You know, honestly, yeah, college is crazy, whatever, but it's very obvious that, you know, your entire life you are fed these sort of points. You can't go within these lines. You're taught your entire life, you know, the worst thing that you can be in this world, worse than a murderer, worse than a rapist, is to be called racist. And, you know, I think that it really is the driving force there. People, like, you can't say anything without, you know, being labeled a racist, and then your life's ruined. These people, the majority of people, aren't really, they're into politics because it's kind of a hobby, or they're, you know, it's fun. But these people, obviously, they still want to have a life. They still want to get invited to all the parties and have friends and all this. And it's, you know, look at myself, and, you know, maybe these guys can you know, maybe they agree or can relate. Ever since I've, you know, when I was in Turning Point and whatnot, you know, there was the crazy people were clashing with me and whatnot. But ever since I've had, you know, the articles, oh, he's a white nationalist, oh, this evil person, you know, the college Republicans even denounced this guy. Ever since that, you know, you don't really have a social life outside of these circles. Everyone thinks it's like, oh, so fun. But in reality, it's like, you either love the country and want to, you know, fight for what you believe is right, or you want to have a normal life and, you know, a normal job. And so I think, you know, I don't know if that really answers your question, but
it does. And
I completely agree with you, Jaden.
Yeah.
Right, because like being woke is like basically wearing the fashionable jeans on the college campuses. It's just they're just doing it to fit into the campus lifestyle, and they don't want to have any issues. So it's easier for them to go along with the crowd than actually fight and say this is wrong. And going back to what Penn State was saying, I don't believe that those Yang people would actually go on the front. They wouldn't, like, they'll say, oh, well, that's wrong, but they won't step up on the front lines to actually defend people's freedoms and right to speak. I don't think they do that. They just cower away, and because they don't want to make a mess or make a scene or get targeted by these leftist groups on campus. Not just the leftist groups, but also the faculty and the leftist administrators who facilitate them and encourage them.
right.
Well, I mean, a lot of them who are still, you know, still Yang people wouldn't do that, obviously, but, you know, you can make converts, like, you know, turning one Yang person into, like, genuine our guy, which I have seen happen, is more valuable than just getting, like, a few to not be openly, like, against us. But what I would say is that the reason a lot of these people do this pandering is because they think if they pander enough, they'll stop being called racist. And we have to reject this mentality of, if you pander and cuck enough, you'll stop. What we need to hammer home to these people is they are never going to stop calling you racist. They are never going to stop pandering to you. If somebody calls you a racist, you don't say, no, I'm not, I swear. You say, I don't care if you think I'm a racist. Like, go, if you're not going to be serious, then I'm just not going to talk to you or, you know, try and deal with you because you're insane. That's what you say to these people. That's how you deal with them. You'll never get anywhere by trying to pander, because if you give them an inch, they'll just take a mile.
I feel that mentality is.
You give them else a
true.
cookie, they're gonna want a glass of milk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like if anything, there was like I think the CrossFit CEO had to resign because he was being labeled a racist, and he caved and said he wrote an apology letter, and all that. And it's like it's you see this type of action every single time. This group of people, like these liberals or these wackos, call somebody a racist, or some name or whatever. They say no, I'm really not, and then they say it again and again until they have to apologize for whatever they did, whether it was or was not. Most of the time, actually 100% of the time, it was not. And they say, "I'm so sorry, please forgive me." But these people will not forgive you. They will not forgive you in any reality. They'll keep hounding you with insults. They'll keep going after you. They might even go a step further and go through doxing or other criminal actions, as has happened before. But these people are they will not just let you go. They will never do that. It's not ever possible. They will keep going after you and after you and after you and make your life miserable. You have to stand up to them, and you cannot give them an inch, because they will take the mile. They will take the entire mile if you give them that inch.
Yeah, Jacob probably found out the hard way when he refused to defund the police in front of all those, like, when they were demanding him to defund the police. Will you abolish the police department? He said no, and then he, like a little kid, he had to like trot away while they were booing him and
It was the
throwing
walk of
things at
shame.
him.
Yeah, walk of
Yeah,
shame.
Yeah, I do hope that there are nationalist friendly lawyers out there, because this is a huge problem. I mean, in one sense, I think we, just by our mere presence, we are canceling cancel culture. And I'm sure that each of us has had experiences where all of these forces smearing us with all of these names have tried to bring us down or silence us. And we're still around. And, Jaden, I mean, you've had these nonprofit groups that have issued multiple reports on you, right? And it's beyond gaslighting. And I want to give each of you a chance to talk about this too. And sorry to be a mom about it, but I am very concerned with, it's not just about protecting your ability to get jobs, but also just psychologically and emotionally. This takes a huge toll on anyone. I'm 49, I'm almost 50, and it can be wearing. And I really do think that we need to have some sort of legal defense fund of our own, so that these people can be sued into oblivion for continuing to libel and defame us and slander us. There's always going to be like a frontline phalanx of people who are willing to put their names and faces. But Chief, you're operating under a pseudonym, and so many of our friends and allies and all of this have to do that as well. I don't know if you saw Ramsey Paul's latest video, but he's giving some practical advice to a lot of people who want to sort of be out front. And he says, don't be a target. And people have to make this choice about whether they're going to reveal their public identity and deal with everything that goes along with it. I want to ask about, and maybe this is too personal, how your parents feel about what you all are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that we've seen, over the last week, some Groypers have been doxxed, and especially with this Black Lives Matters, like is targeting, this dox campaign that they're really pushing hard on Twitter. I do want to stress that this is not, sunshine and rainbows like a lot of people think it is. And yeah, with getting back to like what my parents think, I have people just this week. I had one of the college dean's son threatening me. I've had, people saying they're going to castrate me, scout me, kill me, find me on campus. And, I'm not in a town that big. I've been recognized at the grocery store. Luckily, they were friendly. But it's like, it is like, I'm not really too worried about it, but it is in the back of my mind. And it doesn't really, I'm kind of used to it. But I will, my mom's not that, she supports me, but I don't think that she likes, seeing that stuff all that much.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure she's worried.
That's what happens. You want to step up and try to save, fight for the country. It's not going to be. sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, that's great. Well, as for me, my father is actually a staunch Reagan conservative. He worked for a defense company, Raytheon, which is the biggest one in Massachusetts. He worked on. Ever seen the movie War Game? Like, he worked on the simulations for the nuclear programs there. So he's like a big conservative. He's the one that kind of introduced me into all this. He just sees this more as a hobby for me to do, like on the side, to like bring up America First. He does support it, but he's like, okay, this is great, but at some point get paid, Nick. Okay, I'm like, okay. My mom, on the other hand, is a little bit iffy about it. She's like, well, just watch what you say, Nick, because I don't want you to get doxxed and be attacked and da. And she kind of gets on my case a little bit, but she's still a great cook, and I'm not just saying that because she's in the next room listening to me.
Marshall?
Yeah, my parents are very supportive, although they're a little bit worried. I do have the additional luxury of being a bit of a larger individual, so I don't worry about like physically being attacked. Like, for example, there was
good work out, Jaden.
Yeah, hit the gym.
I'm
That's
huge.
another thing.
I'm huge.
But no, there was a guy on campus, for example, who was making threats against the the leadership of my organization and some other people. My name was very conspicuously absent on his list of people he was threatening. I do take it seriously and take precautions, but it's something you're just gonna have to be willing to deal with if you want to be in this, line of work.
Yeah. Rick and Julie?
I know my parents are a little afraid of, the doxing, and especially with what's been going on right now with the rioters and the looters, but they're very supportive of me. And I know my dad and my uncle are watching right now. So hi, guys.
Hi.
But no, I'm very happy with my family because they support me with this 100%.
With my father in particular, kind of similar to what's been said before, like very concerned about, well, where do you go from here, like after college, after this whole political stint, when you go into the professional career and you try looking for a job, and then you got like your name's Googleable and you have like images online. How is that going to affect you? So he supports what I do, but very cautious and very nervous, and rightfully so. Like you can't get into this line of work without some kind of thick skin. Like this, I'm looking at this as the greater objective for the country and not for the person.
Right.
Yeah. Chief?
Yeah, so mine are a bit, nervous. I've already had a couple of DMs trying to get information and stuff from me. I mean, not the extent of Jaden or any. He's had a devastating amount of these wackos after him. But it's
my fans.
Yeah, no.
They write poems about Jaden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it was like 2 likes for a poem. Like I saw that cringe. That was hilarious. I mean, my parents are kind of nervous. They they're not really that big fans of it, but I think it's very good for the country, and the truth has to be out there. So that's what has to be.
Absolutely. The truth does have to get out there. It's why I support each and every one of you. So thankful for your time today and everything that you do. Chief Trumpster is at Chief Trumpster. Jaden McNeil is at McNeil Jaden. And Rick and Julie are at ASU_CRU. Marshall's at Penn State BMP, that's the Bull Moose Party, and Nick Reedy is at Nick Reedy 29. Follow them all on Twitter. Many of us are on Telegram as well. Take care, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you so much for having us on the show. I really appreciate it.
You're
great. You're the greatest. You're base. You're